This is Jeff Patterson, the banking guru, and he's going to be talking to us about the PPP loan, something that's very near and dear to our hearts.
So happy to be a part of this tiny agency as far as government agencies go. There's only about 3,300 employees at SBA, but we have been tasked along with Treasury to get one of the largest economic recovery programs to Main Street, and that has been quite an undertaking, and again, largest in history. What I want you to know today, when I put this program together, I wanted to talk about some other things, basically. But when you think of SBA, you should be thinking of capital formation or lending products and all that. So we're going to spend a good bit of time talking about PPP and things of that nature, but I'll give you my disclaimer now. The program is fluid. Our resource partners, and I'll mention those to you, our resource partners are doing a deep dive in some of this, SCORE, SBDCs, BBOC, those kind of folks, the women business centers we're participating with. So if I don't cover something here today that you wanted to hear, just Google one of those folks and I'll give you that information as well. But there'll be a deeper dive even from our district office. So there are other sweeteners in the new law, the new act, and we're not even going to get into that today because of time. But there are some exciting things in regular programming, like a 90% loan to 90% guarantee. You can tell I'm an old banker. I said loan to value. 90% guarantee for SBA on a 7A product, and particularly a 504 Express is coming. So a little bit of an infomercial about who we are. We were established in 1953. There are offices all throughout the country, but our main mission, as you see on the bottom, is to support creation and the growth of small business. So here's kind of the mini agenda. So again, I said SBA, you should be, the first thing that comes to mind, hopefully, is capital formation. We do some work in contracting. I'm going to give you some numbers on that. And then one of the other 3 C's, and you see that there, that's just a quick way to remember. We do some things in counseling. We have a great banking network in Georgia. If you've been paying attention, you know what PPP is and EIDL, those 2 programs. But what I wanted to show you here is the dollar volume. We have a lot of smart bankers we join in with, but the dollar volume for those programs put us number 4 and number 5 nationally as far as what we're doing in the state of Georgia. So that correlates to the fact that we're helping a lot of businesses here in Georgia. And you can see some of our other volume in our products there, 7A and 504, and our micro lending. So the PPP program, the Paycheck Protection Program, here's just a couple of things. There was, over 5 million loans made and over $500 billion system-wide. And we laugh about how busy we were. It was really 14 years worth of loans in about 14 days. I showed you the Georgia numbers. That's what I wanted to really show you here on this slide, is that we touched 86% of the small businesses in Georgia with their payroll. So again, we help folks, we think, and more to come. So I broke out a couple of specific industries just so you know. Healthcare, 13% of the money, construction, 12%. There's more, again, programming coming. The other thing to remember is there's a lot of jobs being supported, and I have those listed, but hub zones, 13 million jobs supported. Even our rural areas, rural Georgia, 12 million jobs impacted. And then we have the religious organizations, which was a first for us to participate in PPP. So just as a quick review, the PPP, the CARES Act, birthed the PPP program. It's a 1% interest rate, which I think everybody recognizes that as a tremendous benefit to the program. The original terms were 2 years. deferred 6 weeks. Your covered period, that's another code word for the time that you can use the money, was 8 weeks. And then you had to have a 75-25 split for payroll and non-payroll. If you were paying attention to the news and such, then there came along the Flexibility Act that basically moved the term to a 5-year term. The deferral period was 10 months, and then then it went to 24 weeks. If you were in the first act, you could pick either 8 or 24, and they reduced it to help small businesses down to a 60-40 split. The final act that we're talking about, and I'm going to get into some changes here in just a minute, that was signed into law December 27th, kept the 1%. You still have 5 years, but and the 10 months. So you do have the 10-month deferral, but now you can pick anywhere along the continuum, 8 to 24 weeks, anywhere along that continuum for your covered period. The split still has to be 60-40. So again, that's just a quick review of where we are and where we've come from. Well, part of the whole program, as you are aware, is to end up with a forgiveness or a forgiven loan. So there's a process associated with that, and I just wanted to just kind of give you a high-level timeline of that. First of all, once you have used the money, obviously you have to have used the money. Then you're gonna request your lender. You say, "Hey, I'm ready for my forgiveness process to take place." There's some documentation, obviously, that you would have to apply or provide. I'm sorry, and then the lender has 60 days to process that. They've been doing really well about getting the information to us. Then, in about 90 days max, the SBA renders a decision on that. About 100 billion out of that 500 number I shared with you earlier, 100 billion of that has already been forgiven. The first thing you need to know, and again, I just want to hit a couple of the main changes here. $15 billion in the last legislation was set aside for low to moderate income folks, and we have a number of lenders that are in that community, and $15 billion, and they're doing that now. Those loans are being done now, and we'll talk about the different kinds of loans, but that's going on as we speak. We're calling this PPP3 just amongst ourselves, but there were a couple of other tranches, as you will recall. But the initial focus is to get the money to the low to moderate income folks and the minority-owned businesses, disadvantaged folks, women-owned, veteran-owned. And here are a few targeted specific business segments that it really wanted to hone in on to. So you're going to hear some verbiage when you talk to your banker. There's going to be, in the legislation, there was something called first draw eligibility. And there's going to be obviously a second draw here we're going to talk about. But the main thing I want you to know is the terminology. If you did not participate in PPP, and you were in business and the other eligibility criteria, 500 employees, if you missed out on that first tranche, if you will, you're going to be able to get back in the game here. If you did not receive a PPP prior to August the 8th, you can talk to your lender and get that going now immediately when the lenders come online, obviously. And I put the application number here for you because that is a little bit different application. So the SBA application 2483. Again, if you have not participated in PPP before, this is for you. If you did receive monies in the first draw, if you will, prior funding, we're calling it the second draw eligibility, another bite at the apple. That application I have listed here, and it's the 2483 SD for, guess what, second draw. So there is different rules for this part of the programming. Revenues must be down 25%. And the beauty of that is you get to pick which quarter. If you want to pick quarter 2 in 2020, compare that to quarter 2 in 2019. If that gives you the math to do that, to be able to qualify, then that helps you, and that helps you with your eligibility. No more than 300 employees. That's a little bit different. And Here's one caveat. You must use the money from the first loan that you received before you get disbursement. So obviously you can go ahead and apply, but you must attest that you have used the money, show documentation that you've used that first money before you get the second bite at the apple, so to speak. Same types of businesses that qualified for the PPP, other than the number of employees and that kind of thing. So again, the Feb 15 date, you must have been in business. There is a $2 million limit, and there's 2.5. The same math applies, basically the 2.5 times your monthly payroll. So in certain NAICS codes, and if you're in business, you know what your NAICS code is, but this beginning in 72 is the hospitality and restaurant industry, and I don't think anybody on the planet would argue that they have not been hit really, really bad. So the new legislation gives them 3.5 times. Okay. The beauty of this is they've made it more user-friendly. When you go to ask for forgiveness, they've opened up eligible expenses. The one I like to say is we had a barbecue restaurant who did not have a drive-through window in his operation. Well, based on COVID, he pivoted and spent his money to open up drive-throughs in his 3 or 4 locations. Well, that money is now eligible to be reimbursed in the new programming. So. And then another thing that's broadened is for example, the group insurance and things like that. So there's more allowable expenses. So pay attention to that. Another thing is there's going to be a way for those people that did not get. There was some confusion early on about owner's draws, partnership reimbursement and things of that nature. So there's a way to do that now. Here's another key thing I need you to take away and not forget. This program will expire March 31st. Now, my guess is that will be kicked, or tweaked to give us a little more time. But as the law reads now, it's March 31st. So time is of the essence, and you want to start talking to your lenders, or what you should be doing now is getting prepared, obviously, with your documentation. Again, in the spirit of trying to expand eligibility and get more money to help protect payrolls, that was what the mission of the program was, is they have really defined what a seasonal employer now is. And that is way more beneficial to our borrowers and to the small business owners. I'll not get into the details of that, but basically it's more user friendly. There's more allowable expenses, and you should benefit from that. The other thing to know about the changes in the law is now our 501c6 partners and friends are available to get the money. Now, who is that? That's typically the chambers of commerce that you know about, but there's some stipulations involved. If you not necessarily the chambers of commerce, they do economic development work, but if you're a lobbying company, you can't have more than 15% of your revenue from lobbying efforts, I should say. Now it's opened up to housing cooperatives, news media with some stipulations attached, hospitals and destination marketing. And the question is, well, what in the world is that? If you're in rural Georgia and you have a visitors bureau, then that's what a destination marketing company looks like. So this is one big improvement, and rumor, there was a lot of chatter about this coming. It never came, and here it is. Thankfully, we got a good Christmas present, but basically every loan $150,000 and under will have a different forgiveness application. It will be a one-pager. It will be an attestation basically by the business owner that you've done what you said you were going to do. You spent the money the way you were supposed to do, and it's supposed to be a way more simplified forgiveness application. Again, the mission of this was to get the capital out on Main Street, and then have the forgiveness piece on the backside if you do what you're supposed to do. The other thing, and you may know this, but the 150 is a magic number because that gets 90% of all these loans made in the nation. So there will be larger ones that will fall under a different process, but the good news is this gets the majority of the the businesses with a simplified application. I'm not real sure Treasury or if we had conversations with the IRS, but early on, these expenses that you counted toward our PPP funding were not going to be deductible. And so that's been fixed. I think the intent was, well, you're double dipping. You can't have forgiveness and free money, and then also deduct that on your income taxes. Well, that has been repaired, which is a good thing. Also, something in the acts from early on, debt relief payments or Section 1112s, as we call those, where SBA was actually making monthly payments on our regular 7A and 504 loans. And I'll tell you that there's more new legislation that we're not going to be able to touch on here. But so there's more funding available for these payments that SBA will make for new originated SBA lending. But there were some complications early on. IRS was going to treat that perhaps as income. That has now been dealt with, and that will not happen. So the language actually is retroactive back to where it goes all the way back to the original CARES Act. So that's a good thing. $15 billion in SBA grants for shuttered venues. You've probably heard in the media, Save Our Stages, those kind of things. No question that live venues, performing art organizations, museums, and the like were heavily impacted with the shelter in place. So there's money available for that. But that's a big industry that was taken care of in the latest legislation. Okay. Take a breath, right? So that was everything I wanted to talk about on PPP. Again, there'll be much more information coming. It will change daily. Probably it's very fluid. So pay attention to our resource partners or our website, or follow us on Twitter, all that good stuff. It will be out there for consumption. But another part of the CARES Act was the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. The key aspects there, basically, I wanted to show you that in Georgia, about $8 billion was deployed for about 178,000 businesses here in Georgia. That was an excellent program for us. Now, the ODA, the Office of Disaster Assistance, said this number is probably 3 months old, 14 million applications. So there's something in the new legislation called targeted EIDL advances. The grants will be extended through the end of the year. The advances, well, to be eligible, you cannot have more than 300 employees. You must be in low-income communities. More importantly, you must have suffered an economic loss of greater than 30%. So here's a couple of things I want you to take away. If you did not receive the earlier advance, remember the math was $1,000 per employee up to 10,000. If you didn't get that advance, now you're able to do that. If you did receive X dollars, if I received 3,000, then the legislation is going to allow you to get the additional 7,000. So the other main point of heartburn for both businesses and the bankers were the fact that when you do apply or did apply for the forgiveness piece, that was deducted by law. That was to be deducted from the forgiveness piece. So therefore, not sure I think I know the reasoning behind that, but suffice it to say it's been repaired. So that's not going to be happening any longer. If you did receive forgiveness and that was deducted, SBA is working on a mechanism to get you that money back. So the disaster side of the house, I work on the PPP side, so I don't have access to the disaster side of the house, if you will, or their systems. But the old saying, I know a guy. So he's been really good to help us with kind of seeing behind the curtain. But there is the disaster web link. Then here's questions for the PPP. And then our UGA SBDC folks are doing a deep dive, as I mentioned earlier, on PPP and SCORE. And all the resource partners, and we're going to talk about those next. But those are key links to know. If you don't already know about the small business development centers and SCORE, you should. The small business development centers are on college campuses. They have the huge research libraries behind them. They can help you with marketing studies and all sorts of financial projections, all sorts of those things. SCORE, let's see, first before I leave SBDCs, I think the last couple of years, they've logged over 30,000 hours of counseling time for small businesses. And guess what? It costs nothing. It's free. So take advantage of that. SBA helps fund these programs I'm talking about. So you should really take advantage of that. Smart people over there. SCORE, the same thing. I think there's something like 130,000 SCORE volunteers nationwide. We have great chapters here in Georgia. Again, these are retired professionals. They have a pay it forward kind of mentality, and they're there to help mentor you. You should look those folks up. Women's business centers. Now, you don't have to be a woman-owned business to do business with the women's business centers, but it's the same thing. They give you technical assistance to help you with your business. We have a great one located here in Norcross. There's another one just opened up. We just hit the airways with that. We're opening one in Savannah. So that'll be a huge benefit for our folks down in that neck of the woods, as they say. The VBOX, the Veterans Business Outreach Centers, great people to try to help again with those soldiers, if you will, that are trying to transition back into civilian life and maybe want to start their own business. Huge asset for Georgia and Warner Robins. You should check those out. And then Emerging Leaders is another program for education that SBA sponsors. So all of these are SBA sponsored programs. It doesn't really cost anything at all. You should really take advantage of them. I would think that just picking up the phone and saying, hey, I'm thinking about opening this branch or doing this or expanding my operation, you can get some really good advice from any of these people. All right, here's just one example of resources for you that's on our website. Pay particular attention to the statistics there. When you get this presentation, you just hit this website because there's tons and tons of information there for you for marketing help or just good information about where your customers are or who your competition might be. Okay, final C, we've been talking about reboot, refocus, contracting, ATDC. SBA does do a lot of business in the contracting space. The granddaddy of them all is the 8A Business Development Program. There are other certifications you can get to help you get, it's a calling card, if you will, but you still have to perform and you still have to provide the services. But we help with certifications that hopefully help you get into the conversation as a marketing tool to assist in those government contracting space. Here's just an example, and I won't read those out, but suffice it to say, there's goaling every year in the contracting space. SBA helps monitor that, establish that. Believe it or not, the government is the largest purchaser of goods and services. And we did some good work in Georgia, and you can see women-owned in the middle of the page. I mean, here are the dollar amounts. Disabled veterans, we need to do some more work there, but suffice it to say, we're doing some good work. And call on us if we can help you. But you're going to start out with Connie over at ATDC and maybe SBDC and some other folks. And that is my contact information and my counterpart, Robert Ware, who takes care of the contracting piece. We kind of split the house in half. I'm being the old banker, I take care of the lending and the economic development stuff, and Robert takes care of the contracting. I do not know if I'm over time, but we can take a couple questions, and I hope that wasn't too fast, but please feel free to reach out to me after this is over. I'm happy to help any way I can.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions here. Number one, you talked about the obviously the PPP loan primarily was passed to keep businesses to maintain their employment level.
That's
So
right.
obviously you can use the money for salaries. What other types of business expenses can the folks watching their businesses use this money for?
Well, so again, the good news is they've expanded that usage. So really, interest carry, rent payments, I use my barbecue guy, any kind of PPE, the equipment that you might use for your employees, those kind of expenses now have been expanded. Suppliers, there's still a question about whether some of my inventory, but any vendor payments, those kind of things. So it's really opened up a lot of opportunity, but really a lot of things a general bit in, on your general P&L would qualify.
Okay. One more question.
Okay.
You talked about the economic injury disaster loan, the EIDL.
Right.
Can you get both? Can you apply for the PPP
Yes.
and the EIDL?
Good question. Thank you for clarifying that. You can. The caveat in the first rollout was that really you should use the PPP for your payroll and such, and use the EIDL money for other things. So I think we still stick to that to be legal and to be right about it. But yes, work with your banker on the PPP side. The EIDL side is the only time SBA makes a direct loan in a disaster situation. So those are directly from SBA. So there's a little bit of paperwork obviously on that side of the house, but yes, by all means get both. You need to get both buckets.
Okay, great. Thanks again, Jeff.